Big D.
What's up?
I'm just thinking about, if we're stuck with Biden, potentially, there's got to be a way that he can do some sick right now to increase his standing and make the Supreme Court justices that put this law into effect look like jokers and also get some accomplished, right? There has to be. Like in my eyes, I feel like the Supreme Court up because they made this ruling while there was still a Democratic president in charge. And he has the opportunity to do something based right now to actually make change.
I just don't think
And he can,
Democrats generally think that way. I don't think he would. I don't think. Yeah.
well, he's trying to make change that would get rid of this decision immediately and force definitions of it to happen.
Wait, no,
And I
he's
think
wait. Biden is.
that's what I would want to do, right? So right now there's a law in the book that says essentially if there's a law in the book right now that says essentially if you're a president, you're king. You can do whatever the you want. That I mean, it's hard to get away from that, right?
That
Using the military, I can remove whoever I want to, detain
some
them,
things
kill them.
basically just can't be criminally questioned. Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could go and if I was president, you could go and detain Supreme Court justices indefinitely in Guantanamo or something. Yes?
Possibly. Sure. Yeah.
Well, is it possibly, or is that how it's written? It
That
feels like there's
in
not a
my
lot of
opinion, it seems that seems to be the case. Is that's how that's written. But
right. So would the what do you think's the drawback if right now Biden goes and says publicly to the world, "I've done this. This is a right that the Supreme Court has given to me, and I will be appointing new Supreme Court justices moving forward." And then after
I
that's
mean, maybe
done,
he could. It's just really extreme.
yeah. So what's the option? He doesn't do it, and then we actually have a perma king after this. If Biden does not use this ability given to him right now, and Trump or someone else comes into office with this law, we have a perma king. That's the end of um, democracy. No?
Here's an issue with all of these thought experiments. I don't disagree with you on this level, okay? But I would go one level higher to this. The issue is that what people don't realize is that democracy only works insofar as like the public wants it to work. I think we
Mm-hmm.
even in some of the federal papers read like it requires a public that is dedicated to the principles of democracy, to uphold the principles of democracy, and to further the principles of democracy. If the republic, no longer is supported by a people that want democracy, then who am I to say that we should remain that way? Do you understand? Like we tried to
Okay.
force democracy in Iraq, or with the
No, no. I
Palestinians, or whatever.
listen.
Yeah.
That's fine. So if the Supreme Court has said we have kings now, then I expect to have a king right now.
Oh, if you want, I would rather. I think I would just leave. I think I would probably just move.
Oh, that's like the I don't want to just move.
Oh,
I'm here. So if under your logic, if the public has determined and the Supreme Court has determined that we get kings now, I would like to have a king right now. I don't want to wait for the next king that's
mm-hmm.
not going to agree with me. I want a king right now. Okay, if that's going to be the case. Like I just fucking Democrats are such limp dick, limp wristed pussies. Right now, he has the Supreme Court stating he can make whatever changes he want to has happen. And it seems like your viewpoint is, yeah, well, I'd really prefer they didn't do that. So I think that's not good. Oh, so let's just not
It's
do
not a matter of
anything.
it being good or not. It's a matter of what kind of government do you want to be a part of. I don't want to be
Yeah,
a
not
part of.
this one.
I don't
I'd
want to
like to
be.
force a change.
No, 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 no. It's not a matter of this one or this guy. It's the system of government. I don't want to live under a monarchy. I don't want to live under a monarchy with a king that I like. I would just rather fucking leave. That's my point of view.
Okay, but
Now, for a
there's
lot of people,
you
you
know
don't
you
want to
have to
leave.
think about a
Stop,
lot of
stop.
people
I
that can't
understand.
leave.
I understand. That's why I said in the context of that you're speaking, I would agree with you. But that's why I said I would back up to one level higher, and I would say I don't want to live in a country like that. I would just leave. Now, if you want to stay here and you want to deal with the outcomes of whatever powers are granted the executive or the Supreme Court or whatever, then yeah, then you would say like, oh well, Biden should start going like full base mode and start doing some wild shit. That's a fair statement to make, I think.
So there's a few questions that I think are sorry. There's a few things here. One, a lot of people can't leave. They have no ability to, right? Like me and you, we can leave. We can go to New Zealand.
Okay.
We can go in with an investment. We can become a citizen there. That's without question. But a lot of people can't.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of so that's the first thing. The second thing would be that America sets the status quo for a lot of the world, and if this happens here and succeeds, I don't think anywhere you move to is safe. If you go to New Zealand and they're like, "Hey, interesting," the Trump strategy uh, seems
Well,
pretty
the
based.
hope, the ideal would be that hopefully other citizens around the world take a look at America and the democratic system that they tried, and they would say, okay, well, here are more safeguards that we need, or here are things that our population needs to be informed about, so you don't have half the country literally clamoring for authoritarian dictatorship, right? Because there are things that I think in America, I think that we failed at for at least the past 40 or 50 years that, yeah, that we could have done better. And I think one of those things is having people, I think that civics or government should have been like a required class in it should have been a required class for every high school student, and people should have I actually I think it maybe just starting and stopping there. I think civics or government should be required.
Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah,
Okay, let's think about how Biden could solve this situation in a way that could not be undone.
hold on
Here's a
one second
way.
real quick, I'm so sorry, hold on. Everybody that's spamming in chat, it is. I don't mean like you learn like a random fucking the 14th president, and then you learn that like one speech that was given and whatever autistic, retarded, dysfunctional shit they present to you in a high school curriculum. I mean that like at the very least you read and study the Constitution from cover to cover. You read a few of the Federalist Papers, and you have a thorough understanding of why the system works as it does. And all of these things are given current day analogs so that you understand the reason why the government functions as it does is because of this and this and this. Okay? Maybe some of you in chat are going to say, oh, no, we had this exactly. I didn't have that. I went to a better school than 99% of you, and they didn't teach that at my school. And most Americans don't seem to have any fucking concept of how the government actually runs. So maybe only the people in my chat all went to exceptionally good schools for civics and government or whatever. But I think the vast majority of Americans have no fucking idea. It wouldn't surprise me if less than half of Americans could even name the three branches of government. Is there a poll for that? Percentage of Americans who know all three branches of government. Holy shit. Wow, it's almost like I fucking wrote this into the... I'm just going by the first article. Like, fewer than half of Americans can name all three branches of government. Survey finds. The percent who can name all three branches was 47. 25% couldn't name a single branch of government. Like, yeah, so maybe in my chat, maybe you guys are like exceptionally fucking ingenious, or all of you into the best grades or high schools or whatever, but I think for a lot of people, I just think a lot of people just don't know how our government even fucking works. Okay, sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
So I think I have a system that could not be undone. There's $100 on the line here, so you're gonna have to play devil's advocate. Okay?
Wait, $100 on the line? How? Like you bet somebody?
Well, with a chatter.
Oh boy.
Okay. So here's what I would suggest Biden do, using his executive powers. One, stack the court immediately with how many justices does he need to give himself the majority? To give Dems the majority.
I don't know, like 4 or something. If
Okay.
it's 3 to 6 right now, you'd give 4 more. That'd make it 7-6.
Okay, we're gonna immediately stack the court with 4 Democratic Supreme Court justices, and we're gonna not worry about confirmations because we're gonna just go ahead and sequester like a bunch of House Republicans or senators when the vote comes, and they'll pass. Okay,
Okay.
you with me so far?
I'm
Okay,
listening.
great.
Yeah.
We've now added and packed the Supreme Court. The first thing on the docket, okay, number one thing that we're going to do on this docket is stating that never in the future can the Supreme Court be packed again, and that this specific rule cannot be undone unless there is a 90% majority in both Congress and the Senate and with the existing Supreme Court justices.
Okay.
Now, there would be a majority of Supreme Court justices, which is all that you would need to get this to be passed in the first place. So they would all do that. And then essentially what you would have to happen in the future for any Republican or Democrat who would want to go and pack the court in the future, they would have to have 90% from everyone, essentially, to change this rule, because it's now written as a Supreme Court rule that cannot be changed. And it's also a legislative rule that the Supreme Court, I believe, reads off of directly and cannot change that. They're there to interpret the law. So you do that essentially. So basically, you get a bunch of Dems on the Supreme Court. First thing that you do is make sure that no one else can ever pack the court again. Second thing you do is that you overturn essentially this existing king for a day law, not king for a day, perma king law, and then that's that, and that's the end, and that's a thing. I'm curious how that can be undone.
I mean, it can be undone the same way that you're saying it could be done
With 90%, because that would be written into the Supreme Court rule.
Well, you can just have first of all, you're never going to even pack the court because I'm pretty sure that requires Senate confirmation. So you'd already need
no, you didn't. You forgot the part of what I said. It does require Senate confirmations, but unfortunately, there'll be a few Republican senators who will be missing for that vote. They'll be sequestered.
I think you need a majority vote. You can't just.
Yep. Well, we'll get more than a few that will go and be sequestered.
Okay, then the Republicans will just do the same thing when they come to office.
They won't be able to because that law will be gone.
Why do you think they would care about the law? They would just do it with secret police.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
You're saying you're treating it like a computer program, or like if I can break these rules in these specific ways or there's not even breaking rules. I can follow the rules as written right now to write a new set of rules to redo the government in a way that the majority of Americans wouldn't normally support the government to be redone, and now it can never be redone in the future because these new rules that I, in an authoritarian fashion, set up have protected from future expansions of authoritarianism.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want, theoretically, I guess it could work.
It's not theoretically. I believe it's actually been done. In California, Uber and Lyft did a rule that went into place. And the way that they wrote that rule is that it cannot be changed no matter what unless they have 90% majority for any future things.
Yeah. Did the governor set that rule up on his own and sequester people to do it? No, he didn't, because we would have all heard about that.
No, he didn't sequester people to do it, but it's within the president's current power to sequester people.
Okay.
So, I feel like
I don't care. I don't want to live in that system. Is it possible? It might be possible,
right,
but I don't care.
Either, and this is how you get rid of that system. I don't.
No, you don't get rid of the system from the top down. Governments don't appear and then people fill out the government. The government's created by the people. If most people don't give a fuck about democracy, I just don't want to live here. And I don't want to hard fix it from a top down.
It's so retarded that people do. Okay, the Supreme Court unilaterally, them specifically, have fucked the country. Not a majority of Americans.
That is not true. No, Americans have fucked the country. Okay,
I don't
we
agree.
Absolutely did. The Barack Obama.
No, you're wrong.
Okay.
Because right now, if you were to go and poll, no, you're wrong. The majority of Americans do not want kings. Okay, and I can tell you that right now. If you go and even poll all of our Republicans out there, hey, should Biden have the power to go right now and have Trump detained permanently? What do you think they would say?
No.
Okay, so it sounds like
we'll ask them if they should have the power to have Biden detained permanently. They'd all say yes. That's the point.
Yes, but the point is that you can go and state these questions to the majority of Americans so that they're going to be like, okay, yeah, having a king is not good. Yeah, Trump might do some stuff that I would like as a king, but you know what? I don't want Biden having this power, so that law should not exist. So
that's not how conservatives think. They don't think that way.
Well, then you would ask them a question. Hey, there's currently a law that says Biden can kill Trump.
They would say, no, that law shouldn't be allowed. But then if you say, well, should Trump be able to do it? They say, well, Trump should be able to do it because he's got a really good reason for it. That's what they would say.
I disagree with you.
Okay, listen, tomorrow, I'm going to have my parents are going to come when I pick up Nathan. We're going to go out to eat. You can come and talk to them, and they'll say shit like this, literally verbatim to you. They'll say it. They're like, oh, yeah.
Well, no, hold on. What percentage of Americans do you believe would say, if you were to ask them, hey, should Trump have the ability to throw anyone in prison, and even maybe to kill them as well, any American, without questioning anything whatsoever, just anyone he doesn't like? What percentage of people do you think would say, yeah, I think he should have that ability?
I don't know, like 45%, whatever percentage are Republicans?
That is the most delusional thing I've ever heard you say. I want you to think about that again. Even diehard Republicans. Tell me
Donald
again,
Trump has literally posted multiple times that he would suspend the Constitution, and he still has like a 95% approval rating in the Republican Party. What more evidence do you need than that?
Okay.
Donald Trump literally tried to change the last election in multiple ways, and he still has infinite support from conservatives. What more proof do you need?
I think that you are taking people that are like supporting Republicans over Democrats and going along with the things they don't like.
Hold on. Listen. I'm sorry. Okay, I understand. If you follow politics in every way, whatever, there are no Republicans and Democrats right now. The Republican Party doesn't exist. There is a party that has been completely absorbed by Donald Trump, okay? Do you remember McCarthy?
Yep.
My parents hate McCarthy. He was like the most Trump loyal person ever, and they call him a rhino, okay? Republicans do not exist at all as a party anymore. It's a group of people that follow Donald Trump. That's it. That's why every single senator and representative, all the lawmakers are allegiant to Trump. It's why you need, like, Trump tries to back people in elections, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Let
me ask you a question. It's important, the framing. I agree, because if you ask the wrong question and you lead it, you're going to get.
It's not about a fucking
poll.
Let
me finish.
Oh my God.
No, don't stop. Yeah, I know.
You're saying like, oh well, if we poll somebody on this, it's not about the polling question. It's about what do people vote for. Okay, go ahead. Tell me about the hyper specific poll that you would ask a person.
Let me know when you're done.
No, go ahead.
Sure?
I'm
done. Sure?
Yeah.
I can go. I believe it's about leading questions.
Okay.
So I think the important thing is, currently there's a law that says whoever is president can kill whoever they want. Right now, Biden is president. Maybe in the future, Trump will be president. This means that whoever is president right now or in the future could kill their political rivals. Do you like this law? Do you think it should remain? That is a neutral question to ask. What do you think the results of that would be?
The vast majority of people would be against it, Dan.
Okay. I think that if the vast majority of people are against the specific law, that's what matters here in getting rid of that.
It doesn't matter at all, but
See, the thing is, you're just completely fucking doomer pilled on all of this shit whatsoever. I don't know what to say to you. It's like so wild to me across the board. Most Americans do not agree with what the Supreme Court just did. Okay. Now, if you could spin what the Supreme Court did to being like, oh, Trump won, then of course you're going to have a lot of Republicans be like, yeah, I love this decision. Trump won. Yeah, I love that. But if you just frame it as the actual law, hey, how do you feel about the fact that whoever's president?
You are correct. You are correct. If you could find ways to run the government by locking people in rooms and framing everything as a neutral question, then you can get people to vote in certain ways. No part of our system works that way. So I don't know what the relevance is of the in a vacuum question.
Okay.
Here's a question. If you were to ask the majority of Republicans, do you think that people should get felony convictions for buying guns and doing drugs, like smoking marijuana on video? I think the vast majority of Republicans would say, fuck the ATF, fuck the government, you should never infringe on our gun rights. But if I say, well, Hunter, fuck that guy. I'm glad that he got convicted. It's long overdue that he got caught for this, and he should never have a fucking firearm in his life for that. Well,
then this is a failure of Biden then to explain what's going on, and I think that's the problem. There's no other way to look at it. Right now, Biden has king powers. Do you at least agree with that?
Kind of.
No, kind of. You kind of agree he has king powers?
He's immune from criminal prosecution when he's performing official acts as president. That's what he has right now.
Okay. So essentially that means anyone who disagrees with him, he can have detained. He can be killed. As it's written right now.
Theoretically, as per the text of the last order, it seems to be the case that is true, yeah.
Do you want to take a stronger stance? I mean, I feel that's how it's written. Every legal argument that I've listened to on it has said that that's the case. I haven't seen anyone saying that's not the case except the most extreme fucking insane delusional debate bros on the right. That's it. That essentially
I don't have a fucking legal education. The only thing I've gotten is I got an email this morning about a legal concept called dicta. That basically the court opinion is only binding in parts or it's responding to the very particular prompt that was raised by the court, and other things that are being spoken about that aren't in direct relation to the question being posed to the court aren't necessarily binding in the same way. But I mean, obviously the statements are still strong, and it could point to different bindings of the future, whatever. But like, I agree with you, like 95%. I don't know 100. I wouldn't say 100%, but I think it's probably the case.
I'll take 95%. That's fine.
Okay.
Biden's a king 95% right now. There's a real chance, it seems like, that soon, in 8 months, 9 months, we'll have a different king. A king that will be unhinged and would love to use the king powers, as opposed to right now, a king that doesn't want to use the king powers. Okay? I think that's his mission in life right now should be to stop this from going into effect before the next presidency, under any means he can bestowed upon him by the Supreme Court ruling. He should act within the law to do everything he can in his power. And if he doesn't do it, he's complicit in the downfall of democracy.
Okay.
Just okay? You don't agree? You think,
no, I don't agree.
Sorry.
I think Americans have voted for it every part of the way. If the majority of Americans vote, you just don't like my opinion. You're not going to convince me with this retarded argument. If it's good for you, that's fine. I don't want to live under a king that saves democracy. I don't know.
First off, a majority of Americans don't want it. So you're not even true there.
Okay.
The best you got was saying 40% of Republicans want it. So that's like 25%, 20% of the population. So you're wrong even there.
In the last year of Obama's term, Obama was denied the ability to seat a justice on the Supreme Court, which is a power expressly given to the president. Republicans suffered absolutely no electoral consequences for that, right? Americans chose that, all right? Part of why we have such a heavily conservative court right now is because Americans made these decisions. There were no electoral consequences for that. So the rulings that are before us now.
I don't agree with you, right?
Okay, that's fine. I don't care.
Why do you think that he wasn't? Why do you think that he wasn't it? That's a failure on Biden. There was plenty of articles.
Wait, well, hold on. What's a failure on Biden?
Not Biden. Sorry, that was a failure on Obama.
Why? What can Obama do? The president can't. All the president could do is nominate somebody. It's up to the Senate to do the hearing.
Obama could have forced the issue. I think there's plenty of articles out there about what Obama could have done to basically force it, and that he was complicit, and he thought there was no chance that Hillary was going to lose the next election. So he said, "Fuck it, we'll just deal with it next time."
I'm unaware of how the president could have forced that. I don't know. My understanding is all the president can do is appoint somebody and then or nominate somebody, and then the Senate has to confirm. And McConnell said, "No, we're not going to hold any hearings for your nomination."
Wasn't there the quote unquote nuclear option for the nomination of Garland?
The nuclear option just has to do with the Speaker of the Majority Leader in the Senate basically ending a process that would get rid of the filibuster option. It would basically make it so that if you've got 51 votes in the Senate, you have the ability to pass legislature or do stuff that you would ordinarily need 60 votes for. But the Republicans had the majority in the Senate, so that nuclear option had nothing to do with anything. It didn't matter. The nuclear option just has to do when you've got between 51 and 59. There's nothing the president could have done.
I'll look for like better things, but I believe. Listen, I thought I was reading. I've read things before about mechanics and essentially influence and whatever else that Obama could have done to force the issue of the nomination of Garland.
I mean, he shouldn't have had to. This is a power that's...
No, he shouldn't have had it, but you know what it always feels like? It feels like Republicans like play dirty tricks and they abuse the letter of the law and they push it as far as possible to get their means across. And Democrats and people like you like roll to the side and be like, yeah, you can fuck me. I don't really want to live in a world where you abuse the rules.
I want to live in a democracy. That's the type of cover that I want. If you've got to play...
Yeah, but you're not being ruled by the problem is you are in a democracy, but you're letting the minority come and fuck you. And you're just sitting there like, wow, I really wish that wouldn't happen. Right? Even right now, you acknowledge that only 20% of Americans want this king shit to exist. 20%.
Yeah, but the rest of conservatives are complicit with it. So that's how the system works.
I don't know if complicit is the right way, but even if you take that, it seems so fucked to me that. See, I guess I completely disagree with you on the matter of it. I want to live in a democracy. I want to live in America. And if I currently have a king, I'd like that king to fucking use his power to do what he says he claims to care about and do. But instead, you're like, yeah, I guess I don't think he should do anything. I think we should just let it all burn. Fuck it. Everyone chose this. No.
Okay. I mean, you can't. You're making an ends justify the means argument, not realizing that the means that you're using destroy the ends. You can't say, like, I want a good democracy, and in order to get there, I'm going to do a massive authoritarian play in order to establish my democracy. That's not how the United States was founded. The Federalist Papers weren't a bunch of people getting together with guns and threatening to kill Americans if they didn't vote a certain way. It was them writing articles at people to convince them that, hey, this is the best way that we do the government. The Constitution was originally framed when they were all having their arguments. There's a bunch of old dudes in white wigs that were screaming at each other about empirical and theoretical ways to establish a government. It was like, oh, let's just enforce this. Let's have a king for this day and do this and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't how any of it worked. So if you're at a point in your democracy where you have to do these authoritarian steps to maintain the democracy has failed. Democracies are only as good as the people that run them. And this idea that, like, well, sometimes you just need one guy to come by and act in a way to subvert the entire system to maintain the system doesn't make any sense.
Well, hold on. Sometimes you do need that one guy, when right now it was just a few Supreme Court justices that made this decision. It was two guys that are overthrowing this.
It's not a few Supreme Court justices. You keep
It
saying
is.
that.
They could
it
have-
was
they could
the
have not
Senate.
done this.
It was McConnell in the Senate blocking a Supreme Court pick. It was Republicans continuing to support
I'm
their
not
party
talking about
that
any of that.
that did
I'm
it.
talking
It
about
is
making a king right now. That's what I'm talking about. You know what? Even here's what I'll even say. You know what? Blocking fucking Garland, it's within their power to do it. Fuck it. That was within their power to do it. Never until this time has it been within the power for the president to be king. That's it. And essentially, two Supreme Court justices have now made that the case. Not the majority of Americans, not anyone else, right? They could have narrowly defined it to more be protective of Trump, but they didn't. They put it out there to make the president king.
okay.
Not the majority of Americans, two people. And one person can possibly override it.
Okay.
So to you, two people doing it, okay, fine.
I don't
fuck
think any of
I
it
guess
is
we're fucked.
okay.
I don't agree.
Okay. I don't think you can create a system of democracy that's resistant to half your country not wanting a democracy anymore. There's no way to create
But we're
that
not
system.
at that point.
I think we are at that point. We are at that point.
We're not at that point. That
Okay.
half the
I
country doesn't
disagree.
want a democracy.
I think we are.
Half the country just doesn't want Joe Biden. That's it.
But I don't care. It doesn't matter. There's no, the other side is supporting Donald Trump as a candidate. Like you can't make excuses for that. Like it's
Well, right now, politics is very heavily bent not on even who your candidate is, but who the opposition is. That's it. I don't disagree that half of the country does not want Joe Biden, and they know the only path to get rid of him is with Donald Trump. I think also a lot of themselves are telling them these Democrats are fucking going crazy. There's no way that Trump is going to kill anyone or do anything. They're
the Republican Party put Donald Trump up as a candidate twice.
I understand that. Okay, I get that.
Or not twice.
But I
I'm
think
sorry,
that if
3
you-
times, right?
If you asked any Republican voter, what do you think the odds are that Trump would kill anyone? They'd probably say, there's no fucking chance. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. I think there's too much at stake to just be like, well, you know, we chose this, fuck it. There's a certain level of, you know, I'll put it this way. We elected Joe Biden. The majority did. He got in there under our rules. The majority of Americans wanted that to happen. They wanted him to be able to set whatever rules in place he chose to be best. Supreme Court says he now has this power. Who are you to say that he shouldn't do it? That's your argument against you. You're saying right now a majority of Americans don't want it, but guess what? A majority of Americans did want Joe Biden to be in there, to do what he could to make America great. So how do you go against that argument?
Well, I mean, we're having our next election. I mean, we'll see who wins, but what do you mean?
You're not listening to me. What I'm saying is that the majority of Americans want Joe Biden right now, or maybe not right now, but they voted for Joe Biden to do everything he could to make America the best place he could under his plan of what he wants for America. We voted for him to be the commander in chief. You make the changes that you think are the best, the majority. So who are we to say that he shouldn't do this to make America better under
I
his
didn't vote
plan?
for Biden to be an authoritarian leader.
I agree. You didn't. But the Supreme Court says he has this power. Are you saying he shouldn't use the power Supreme Court has given to him? He should just be a cucked fucking...
He can want to if he wants to, but that's not what I voted for. That's not what I support. That's not the type of system that I want to live in.
Yeah, I don't think Biden wants to live in there either. Would you support Biden doing something to get rid of that?
I guess working within the system to do what he can, sure. But
The current system?
yeah.
So the current system says that he has a lot of powers to be able to do that, no?
Not technically, but, well, I mean, not conceptually, but technically, possibly. It's still untested, but...
I think it's pretty clear that the president has the ability to order the military to, I'm not going to even say kill, but to detain whoever he wants indefinitely. He is the commander in chief. He can detain anyone he doesn't want to have around. You 95% agree with that statement.
that's how it looks like it is. The Supreme Court is.
Why are you giving such fucking weak answers? Why not
because
just say,
none of this has been tested yet. It's not a fucking binary like, oh, they did this and blah 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 blah.
Tested. I'm asking you, do you 95%?
Because I'm hedging my answers. Because every single thing I say gets clipped 50 million fucking times on the internet. I end up looking like a fucking retard, agreeing to shit that is completely fucking untested. So no, I'm not gonna follow you into the ends of the fucking earth on your hypotheticals off of a Supreme Court decision. I'm not gonna say, oh yes, 100%. The president, blah, blah. Especially I'm gonna be doing debates about this topic over the next 2 weeks. I'm gonna make me look like a fucking retard. So no, I'm not gonna agree with you,
fine.
like without qualifying my answer.
So
Jesus Christ.
Right. Okay. As it's written right now, let's qualify.
I've already said it. You don't have to repeat my qualifications. I can qualify my own statements. I said, yes, as written, it appears that the president probably has the power to do that. Yes. That's what I've said, yes.
Well, let me do it a little bit. Well, in my case, as is written, it appears, it's my understanding, as far as I can tell, based on what's written, and from what I've understood so far, it seems like with a 95% chance that probably the president can have someone detained and killed. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay. I agree with you. I think that's how it's written right now, personally. And if the Supreme Court wants the king to have that power, I think the king should have that power.
Okay.
And right now, we are lucky that we have a king that doesn't want that power. We have the Jon Snow right now in charge, okay? Everyone wants Jon Snow to be the one true king, okay? And I don't want it, okay? I can't do a good Jon Snow impression. He doesn't want it. We are so lucky that we have...
You can't, you're repeating the same... Are you just going to repeat this over and over again until I agree with you? I'm not going to agree with you ever. I don't agree in violating the principles that the country was built upon because the country has changed to such a way that the current president can break those principles. You're saying that, like, well, if you like the system and the majority of people voted for this last guy and now the system has changed in such a way that these principles are broken, but he could use his majority support to fix the country or whatever. I just don't agree with that conceptually. I don't period.
So
it doesn't matter how many times you lay out the exact same thing over and over again. I just don't agree with it.
Okay, first off, a few points here. When the country was founded, there was slavery, okay? And the majority of Americans wanted to keep slavery, I believe, even up to the point where a president said, no, that's not good. We're not doing that anymore. Yep. Okay? So that did happen. Okay? So that argument's out. Yes? So we don't really care about what was written when we start. We only care about what's the benefit of the country.
What?
You just said in your argument that I don't think this is good because the original framers essentially did not put this in there. Okay? This is not a law that was there. No? We can go back and listen to what you said.
Oh, okay. I don't understand. We got rid of slavery. Well, there was a civil war.
Stop. Okay. You said, we'll take it one step at a time. You said part of the reason that you do not support Biden using the powers that he may or may not have right now is because as it was written in the beginning, in the framing documents, that wasn't the case, that it shouldn't be the case. Okay? So that's one reason that you don't agree with it. I'm giving you an example saying that does not matter to you. Okay?
No, slavery is not a part of our constitution or whatever. It's not a principle of the founding country. It was a thing that was legal at a point in time, but Americans were given the ability to change their constitution via an amendment process. And we did that. And that's how we got rid of it. I support that.
Okay. And there's never been instances of presidents going against what the public wanted, the majority.
I'm sure there have been.
Some
presidents have
things?
suspended habeas corpus. Some presidents have. There were times when our media was heavily restricted during wartime. For whether or not I would support or not support any of these things, I would have to look at the particular action, and I would have to look at the particular legal analysis of that action to have a thorough understanding of it to see if I would support it or not support it. I'm sure
like
there are probably things, though, that there are probably things that some presidents that I disagree with. I'm sure there have probably been things that I disagree with. Sure.
What about agree with as well? Things that the president has done that the majority of Americans didn't want to have happen, that you think was good, and you're glad that it happened.
Probably.
there's anything
Yeah,
like
I'm
that?
sure. Yeah, I'm
Yes?
sure there must be things
Okay,
that
so then
presidents that are
so that
unpopular.
argument is that so that argument's out there.
I don't think I've
right?
ever used that argument for anything in my entire life, but okay.
You just did. You said the majority of Americans don't want it, so that's why it's important. And you just agreed, saying that there has been things in the past where the majority of Americans didn't want it, and the president did it anyways, and you're glad it happened. So fuck you.
Wait.
This is
Wait,
not a hard
wait.
concept.
Restate what you think my original position was?
You said, okay, and we can go back and listen to it again if you want.
We don't have to go back and listen to it.
all right,
I don't know
fine.
why you keep saying this. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You said that I don't want to fix this. If the majority of Americans want this, fuck them. It's not worth fixing. And then I've asked you, so that's what you said initially.
Okay, hold on.
Do you disagree with that statement?
I don't disagree. I'm sorry. Let me expand upon this more. When I say the majority of Americans want a thing, I don't mean that 51% of Americans have voted yes on a referendum to make a thing happen over and over again. What I mean is that the system functioning as it does has had enough support from Americans for the system to change as it has. When I say the majority of Americans are supporting this, that's what I mean. The system has moved. You could argue that in some ways, well, actually, it's not the majority because the Electoral College and blah, 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 blah. It's not technically 51%. What I'm saying is enough people in the system have supported the system such that it's gotten to this way without like breaking any major rules or laws or like doing anything too crazy. It's just the system corrupting itself. And it has enough support, organic support inside the system for that corruption to happen. When I say the majority of Americans have supported us, that's what I mean.
Okay. So you feel like there's enough support right now that something bad could happen or something good could happen, even though they don't have the majority. Is that accurate?
I mean, yeah, possible. Yeah. I mean, like presidents can be elected without majorities. Senate has a lot of power, and that doesn't represent the majority of citizens. Supreme Court is the Supreme Court.
Sure. So do you also concede that in the past, there have been major changes to America where the majority of Americans either did or did not want something, and the president went the opposite way, and you're glad that that happened, and you think that was the right thing, and it was better for democracy?
I'm not. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. I think that there's probably many things like that that you would agree with, but having them offhand is a little bit difficult for me to find. I guess I would say,
like, there might be decisions. There might be decisions like that have happened, but I don't know if every decision a president makes like that might contravene the American public. I don't know if it's as core to our construction of government or my understanding of how this government is supposed to function. So like there might be, for instance, a president that in the most unconstitutional and illegal and subverting the process way possible, like replaced the carpet in the Oval Office with a carpet of a different color. And he absolutely was not allowed to do that, and he was barred from doing it. And then I was like, you know what, fuck it, it looks better or whatever, right? And I don't care that much about that particular thing. But I don't know if that's as core to my understanding or appreciation of how our system works that I would say that that's like on the same level as the slow push towards fascism, essentially, that conservatives have been championing in this country for the last like decade and a half.
Okay. I think that there's probably been events, especially around integration and slavery and other things along those lines.
Well, for slavery, we had to fight a war, right?
Okay. Okay. Again, that's still something the president did that you think was good that he did that. Yes?
Well, I don't believe the states didn't. I don't think the states had a legal right to secede from the Union. So yeah,
I didn't ask you that. I'm asking you, do you think that Lincoln did the right thing?
But going to war when the states tried to secede, yeah, I think was probably the right thing. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he had the support.
Even though the majority of Americans weren't for it at that time.
Even though the majority of Americans weren't for it at the time, I don't even know if that's true. Because if you're seceding from the state, I don't even know if they were voting or how. I don't even know how the electoral system was even working at that particular time.
Okay. This is all coming down to the issue, essentially, of if the majority of Americans want something, that it has to happen, or if they're complicit in it being the case. But even that falls apart when I say that the majority of Americans put Biden in power and wanted him to do what he thought it was best for America. Yeah, I guess I'm confused on why you wouldn't want him to do that with the powers that are now given to him.
If he wants to, he can. I'm just a little indifferent to it at this point. I don't want to live in a country where 40% of the citizens, or in Dan's words, only 49% of the citizens want to live in an authoritarian dictatorship. I'm just not very interested in that. I don't really care much.
I don't agree with that statistic. And it's not about what we want. It's about what's best for the country and the common person who can't move, who can't.
No, that hasn't been the conversation topic at all. If you want to make the conversation topic is like, what do you think would be best for most people if we lived under some authoritarian regime? Or I would say, oh yeah, well probably the better authoritarian would probably be better for sure. The question was initially like, oh well, why would you leave or what would you want to happen or whatever, right? For me personally, it's going to be different than what would be best for the average person.
I don't know. This all started with me basically stating that if this power is now in effect, why would you not want Biden to do everything he could to get rid of that power? Like, to literally be Frodo and throw the ring into the fire. Why would you, yes, he has to use the ring to throw it into the fire. Biden is literally fucking Frodo right now. And you're like, nah, I guess you would just leave it there and wait for the next dude.
I'm pretty sure I think the analogy probably more closely matches you saying that Frodo should just wear the ring the whole time to go to the mountain. That's essentially what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying right now.
Actually, hold on. I'm sorry. Actually, it fits perfectly. No, it actually fits perfectly. That's a great analogy. Yes, correct. That Frodo thinks he needs to wear the ring in order to destroy it. And at the very end, if it weren't for Sam, he literally would have put the ring on and just walked out and just worn it forever.
Kamala.
Because absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah, as soon as you start holding on to power like this, it's hard to know if you would ever give it back or if the system would change fundamentally.
Yeah, I agree that would be bad if that happened. But we would hope that wouldn't happen. Of course, there's no predicting Biden becoming a fucking madman and going insane. But if you're asking me, do I think that Biden should put on the ring to destroy it by any means possible, then I think the answer is yes. This is such a damaging thing that's done. I completely support him doing anything in his new powers to throw the ring into the fire. Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. You can have that position. I think it's
and your position is that Biden now has the ring, and he's just going to leave it on the table for Trump to use.
My position is I have no interest in participating in a system where we have to use fascism to fight fascism. It undermines the entirety of what I think the system should be. At that point, whatever you've created afterwards is not legitimate. You're not going to have that support in the future anyway. You haven't done anything to get rid of the base that led to those exact same things happening.
No, this is not fair because the base didn't write the rules. The base doesn't like... listen, there's been divisive politics for years. It's not new with Trump versus Biden, okay? The Republicans have always hated the Democrats and vice versa. The only thing that has changed here is that the Supreme Court has put out an insane ruling that makes the president a king. That is not something the majority wrote. That is something that they unilaterally
didn't just happen.
With their
we
own
didn't just
power
get here immediately. We've been taking a lot of steps to get to this position. Like, there are a lot of things that have had to happen in the past, even just 2 to 3 decades, to get to the position that we're at now. It didn't just happen in just one crazy random Supreme Court decision.
No, you're wrong. Okay? The Supreme Court could have written this decision at any point in time if the case came to them.
No.
True or false? No, they
false.
Couldn't? So they couldn't have written this back with Nixon? It would be impossible for them to have written this back then. It's impossible.
No other president that I'm aware of in history has tried to take a case to the Supreme Court to ask for full criminal immunity. I'm not aware of that
Okay.
even happening. So you had it. One, you need the case, okay? You need the case of a former president committing fucking crimes and then going to the Supreme Court and asking for immunity. So that's one thing that aspect, okay? But not only do you need that president, you need somebody who would support a person of that character, of that moral fiber,
Nixon
okay?
and Jaworski
Then you would need
directly to the Supreme Court.
for what?
You just said they've never, no president has ever appealed to the Supreme Court before. Nixon did this.
For civil immunity for firing an employee.
And,
when
and
Nixon got caught doing Watergate,
it would be so unreal for them to come out and say, as insane a ruling that Trump didn't even ask for, by the way. That's one of the things that you take away from reading this, is that the Supreme Court went so far, they couldn't even, the Trump's attorney couldn't even fucking believe.
Sure, but
what
they
the
were still
Supreme Court
asking
gave to
for
them.
forms of criminal immunity. Nixon didn't ask for immunity over Watergate. He resigned immediately, and then he accepted a pardon from Ford, which is an admission of his crimes, and then he walked the fuck away. It wasn't even a thought in Nixon's mind that he could go to the Supreme Court and say, hey, actually, can I get full immunity from this?
Attorney's mind, or
It
Trump's
literally
mind.
is. Yes, they went to the...
No, it was not a thought in their mind that when they went there, that they would get the result that they got at the end of the day.
No, but they
never
were still
something-
asking for forms of criminal immunity, just not as much as they got. But they were still asking for it, of course. Why the fuck do you think they were in front of the Supreme Court?
Yeah, I understand that, but it was the Supreme Court specifically, not the majority of Americans, not anyone else. The Supreme Court could have come out with a very narrow answer to this, which would have kept Trump from going to jail, but they didn't do it. They gave God power to the president. That's what they did. Okay, they could have come out and said, listen, under this very specific case, when this happens and there's this dude in the room and this dude is not in the room, and under those cases, we say that you're immune. But they didn't. They were just like, if you're a president,
I don't disagree that they could
have.
have ruled differently.
So
I'm just
it
saying
was
that it's not just
unilaterally.
it's ignorant to assume that it was just one Supreme Court decision that landed us where it's at. It's not. It's been a whole chain of events that have happened over the past couple decades.
Listen, the Supreme Court could have appeased the entirety of their base without making Trump or Biden become a king. They could have done that. They could have given Trump the immunity that he needed to escape whatever shit he's in.
Which they probably have already done.
They could have done that, okay? And they didn't. They went further, unilaterally, without the support of the majority of Americans, okay? And if you ask the majority of Americans, do you think whoever is president should be able to kill whoever they want? They would all say no, okay? Not saying Trump, not saying Biden, just should whoever's president be able to kill any congressman or senator? They would say no, okay? And that's a fact. So the Supreme Court, okay, two of them, I guess, would be the majority into that case, with their own power, set this rule into place, changing the nation. Those two people, not the majority of Americans, two people set us on this path. And your argument to this is, well, Americans will just accept it, so fuck it. But Americans would obviously, as you know, because they're fucking politics pilled, if it's Trump win, Biden loses, they would accept anything.
Okay, that's fine. That's a consequence of
that
our
is-
system.
Can I
Then
ask you a
that's a
question?
failure of our system. Then that's fine. Then it doesn't work, right? Then,
it's not a failure
and
of
it's going to come
system.
out. It is a failure of the system. Yes, maybe it's a failure of having two parties. Maybe it's a failure of us electing our executive instead of having a parliamentary system. There's a million ways of it, but it's fucking failed. If it's delivered you to the point, if a democracy has delivered you to a point where you have to be undemocratic to sustain it, then the system has failed.
Dan,
I
can I
don't-
ask you a question?
Yeah, fine.
What do you want Biden to do with his new godlike king powers?
I want him to get rid of the godlike king powers
How?
by any means necessary.
He wants them to. He wants them to arrest people in the Senate and then keep them
don't
there
speak
and then
for, I
arrest.
can speak for myself.
Well, then
Thank
give
you.
a real
I'm big
answer
boy.
instead of avoiding the answer because you know it's fucking
I wasn't
crazy.
avoiding. I'll tell. Okay.
You dodged
How
it
do I
twice,
want-
so yeah.
No,
you
no,
can
go ahead. Talk to me a third time. Talk over me again. Okay. How would I have him do it? Now, I'm not a constitutional fucking scholar, so I would have him do it with the most minimal impact possible. Okay. But the goal is to do one thing. The goal is to change the Supreme Court law with a new one. Now, how are you going to get that to happen? You either have to add a majority of liberal Supreme Court justices, or you have to remove some of the conservative Supreme Court justices, and then you have to put a new case before the Supreme Court, which overwrites the existing law and also makes it so that it cannot be changed in the future without some insane majority that could never be done in the future. So how could that be done? You could pack the court, and then when Republicans objected one by one, you would start sequestering them so they're not there for the vote. Okay, that's one way. That's probably the least insane way to do it. Not killing anyone, but just like putting them in a hotel room or something like that so they can't make the vote. That's what I would support happening. Only for one thing, and that is getting rid of the king rule. For nothing else. Not for making gay rights better, not for withdrawing from Gaza, not for making healthcare universal right, only for one thing and one thing only. To get rid of
Okay,
president
how
and king.
how do you understand the king rule? Now, Pisco and I will probably fight about this, but I think we understand the king rule completely differently.
The president is the commander in chief, and any
Yep.
action he takes as a military commander is criminally immune. So to me, if he goes and he orders his Secret Service or the National Guard or whoever he wants, and he says, this guy needs to be sequestered, that would be an order that he would not be able to be held accountable for, because it is his exclusive right as the commander in chief to order the military as he sees fit. He's not declaring war. He is targeting a specific person.
So in this scenario, I agree that the commander in chief is a core constitutional duty. However, criminal prosecution is not the only available means to the Congress in order to hold the president accountable, and therefore he could still be impeached and removed from
Really?
office.
No, he can't, because anyone that takes that
Why
vote,
not?
we're going to sequester them. They won't be there for the vote, unfortunately.